180 HSE interview questions and answers. What is the purpose of a method statement? The purpose of method statements is to describe the safety precautions to put in place to control risks identified. In the risk assessment, they detail the equipment to use during projects, and the control equipment and PPE required to keep workers and site visitors safe while tasks are ongoing. What is the use of WMS? We can plan and execute the work easily and safely. It also helps to know the codes and standards used for each activity. What is a JSA? A Job Safety Analysis, JSA, is a procedure which helps integrate accepted safety and health principles and practices into a particular task or job operation. What are the steps to completing an effective job safety analysis? Step 1. Choose the procedure. Step 2. Break the job into steps. Step 3. Identify hazards. Step 4. Implement solutions. Step 5. Communicate the findings. Step 6. Review and update. What is work permit? A safe work permit, also known as a permit to work, is a document that includes a description of the work to be performed, the hazards involved, the precautions to take, the required authorizations, and other elements. It is a written record authorizing a specific work. How many types of permits are used? Hot work permit, cold work permit, confined space entry permit, excavation permit, lifting permit, night work permit, radiography permit, electrical permit. What is safety? The condition of being protected from or unlikely to cause danger, risk, or injury. Control of accidental loss of resources, human and material. What is near miss? An undesirable event which has the potential to cause loss. What is confined space? A confined space also has limited or restricted means for entry or exit and is not designed for continuous occupancy. Confined spaces include, but are not limited to, tanks, vessels, silos, storage bins, hoppers, vaults, pits, manholes, tunnels, equipment housings, ductwork, pipelines, etc. In what circumstances a confined space work permit can be issued? If properly ventilated, gas test readings are satisfactory, properly barricaded and warning signs are posted, trained standby man is present with log sheet, sufficient lighting and low voltage electricity, 24 volts to 110 volts, proper means of communication, locked and tagged out if necessary, lifeline man retrieval system if necessary, etc. Who is confined space attendant? He is one who is aware of the confined space hazards and knows how to react if anything goes wrong, able to maintain confined space entry log sheet, etc. What are the hazards in a confined space? Chemical hazards, fire hazards, fall of materials, fall hazards, electrocution, dust, sounds, heat or cold, caught in between moving, equipment's engulfment, etc. What are the responsibilities of a confined space attendant? Know the hazards. Know the behavioral effects of the hazards. Be able to identify the authorized entrance. Remain outside until relieved. Communicate with entrance throughout the work period. Monitor and evacuate entrance if necessary. Summon rescue, if needed. Give some example of a confined space. Pipes. Vessels. Tanks. Boilers. Trenches. Excavation deeper than 4 feet. Sludge pits. Ductworks, etc. Who is competent persons? Is one who is properly trained and authorized to perform a specific work in a safe manner. Who is capable of identifying existing predictable hazards. What is accident? Accident is uncontrolled events that results in undesirable consequences to personnel, injury, illness of the assets, damage or loss, or to the environment. An undesirable event which causes harm to personal, damage to property. What is the purpose of accident investigation and reporting? When incidents are investigated, the emphasis should be concentrated on finding the root cause of the incident so you can prevent the event from happening again. The purpose is to find facts that can lead to corrective actions, not to find fault. Always look for deeper causes. What are the steps of an investigation? Step 1, immediate action. Step 2, plan the investigation. Step 3, data collection. Step 4, data analysis. Step 5, corrective actions. Step 6, reporting. How do you write an accident investigation report? Date, time and specific location of incident. Names, job titles and department of employees involved and immediate supervisors. Names and accounts of witnesses. Events leading up to incident. Specifically what the employee was doing at the moment of the accident. What is the purpose of waste management? Waste management is an important element of environmental protection. Its purpose is to provide hygienic, efficient and economic solid waste storage, collection, transportation and treatment or disposal of waste without polluting the atmosphere, soil or water system. What is MSDS used for? A material safety data sheet, MSDS, is a document that provides health and safety information about products, substances or chemicals that are classified as hazardous substances or dangerous goods. What is a MSDS and what is its purpose? A material safety data sheet, MSDS, is a document that contains information on the potential hazards, health, fire, reactivity and environmental, and how to work safely with the chemical product. It is an essential starting point for the development of a complete health and safety program. What is radiography? Radiography is a commonly used technique in the industry to evaluate the structural integrity of a structure. What is rules to remember when working with radiation? Acquire adequate training to better understand the nature of radiation hazards. Reduce handling time of radioactive materials and equipment. Be mindful of your distance from sources of radiation. Increase distance as much as possible. Use proper shielding for the type of radiation. Isolate or contain harmful radioactive materials properly. Armor yourself with appropriate protective clothing and dosimeters. Conduct contamination surveys in the work area. Do not eat, drink, smoke, or apply cosmetics in an area where unsealed radioactive substances are handled. Observe proper radioactive waste disposal. Conduct regular radiation safety self-inspections. What are the basic requirements of a man basket? Third-party certificate for man basket, slings, and master links should be available. Factor of safety for man basket and sling should be 7:1. Any man-basket activity is considered as a critical and hence risk assessment shall be done prior to job. Load test shall be done by putting sandbag, related capacity load before sending of personnel every time. Angle of wire rope sling to basket should be more than 45, because if angle is less, sling of the basket will be subjected to maximum stress. 2 tag lines shall be used to control the swinging of man basket. Lifeline shall be installed above the crane hook. Inspection of all PPE before use. Approved fall protection equipment should be wear. What are the different types of slings? Wire rope, the most commonly used sling. Chain, combines superior strength, ease of handling and durability. Mesh, wire and chain. Synthetic, both web and round slings are used where loads must be protected from damage. What should you look for when inspecting slings? Missing or illegible sling identification. Acid or caustic burns. Melting or charring of any part of the sling. Holes, tears, cuts or snags. Broken or worn stitching in load-bearing splices. Excessive abrasive wear. Knots in any part of the sling. What are the types of cranes? Mobile crane, crawler crane, floating crane, truck-mounted crane, tower crane, bridge, overhead crane, bulk handling crane, hammerhead crane. What are the parts of crane? Boom, slings, shackle, flying jib, anti-tow block, outrigger, main hoist, auxiliary hoist, pulley, web slings, LMI, load movement indicator. What are the lifting best practices? Conduct a visual inspection of the equipment. Conduct a visual inspection of site conditions and potential hazards. Ensure the stability zone of the equipment. Ensure stabilizers are fully deployed. Check the rigging. Ensure all safety devices are in place. Ensure all personnel is a safe distance from the equipment, the loads and any other objects within the lift zone and its perimeters. Ensure loads to be lifted are within the crane's capacity per the owner's manual. Ensure load, lift limits are fully adhered to. Ensure the crane is as close to the load being lifted as possible. When performing lifts, keep loads as low to the ground as is reasonably safe. Secure load once it has been lifted and properly stow the crane, stabilizers, winches and any other moving parts. Explain lifting control measures. Crane must be third-party certified with valid inspection certificate. All lifting tackles must be third-party certified and color-coded with valid certificate available. All lifting tackles must be visually checked before use for any damage. Correct lifting angle must be used for lifting. 60 degrees is the best lifting angle. Correct capacity of slings and shackles must be used for lifting as per weight and shape of the load. Check the swing radius of the crane and ensure that it is unobstructed by any facility. Ensure that crane is positioned correctly. Tag line must be used to control the load and avoid hitting any plant facility like pipelines, equipment. Do not lift load when wind speed exceeds 25 knots. Always follow load chart for lifting any load. ASLI, automatic safe load indicator, must be operative and crane operator must not lift any load out of the load chart limit. Check wind speed and do not lift when wind speed is more than 25 knots. Use wooden mats under the crane outriggers to distribute the load. Do not position the crane outriggers near any drain line, otherwise there is a chance of sinking of these outriggers, resulting in crane tipping over. Trained banksmen must guide the crane when moving inside the plant. 2 riggers must be assigned, one guiding at the front, other at the back. Crane positioning must be checked via site visit and marked on plot plan of the plant to ensure that ground is stable for bearing crane weight. Always provide barricades and proper signage to keep unauthorized personnel away from the lifting area. What is tandem lift? A tandem lift involving the simultaneous use of more than 2 cranes. What is the purpose of a lift plan? Crane overturning. Load falling from the crane. Load or machine striking someone or any other identified hazard. What is excavation? Excavation work generally means work involving the removal of soil or rock from a site to form an open face, hole or cavity using tools, machinery or explosives. What is trench? A trench is an excavation in which the depth exceeds, is bigger than, the width. What are the hazards associated with trenching and excavation? Cave-ins or collapses that can trap workers. Equipment or excavated soil falling on workers, for example, equipment operated or soil, debris stored too close to the excavation. Falling into the trench or excavation. Flooding or water accumulation. Exposure to a hazardous atmosphere, for example, gas, vapor, dust, or lack of oxygen. Contact with buried service lines such as electrical, natural gas, water, sewage, telecommunications, etc. Contact with overhead electrical lines. Slips, trips and falls as workers climb on and off equipment, or from inappropriate access and egress methods. Being struck by moving machinery, or by falling or flying objects. Hazards related to materials handling, for example, lifting, struck by, crushed between, etc. What you should do before you begin an excavation. Identify the soil types related to the excavation or trench you are going to dig. Soil properties often vary widely within a single trench, for example, the soil type changes from top to bottom and along the length of a trench. Look for the legislative requirements that apply in your jurisdiction and the type of protective measures to be taken. Locate all buried services. Contact the owners of any underground utilities, services that may be in that location and ask them to identify and mark the location. Identify and locate overhead power lines. Make sure these services are de-energized as necessary. Know all of the contact numbers of these services if there is an emergency. Check areas adjacent to the site for potential hazards and sources that can impact the stability of soil. Be aware that nearby vehicles and equipment can cause the soil to vibrate and then collapse. Determine if nearby buildings or structures and their foundations may put pressure on the soil and affect the walls of the trench. Test for hazardous gas, vapors, and dust before entering. Test for oxygen levels in the space before entering, and during the work as required. Plan appropriate organization of the work site, and good housekeeping practices including moving debris and excavated soil far enough away from the excavation site. Remove water from the excavation. Protect workers from falling into the excavation. Identify appropriate personal protective equipment, including high-visibility apparel for vehicular traffic, and make sure every worker wears them as required. Have a worker above ground when a worker is working in the trench to warn those in the trench of danger and to provide emergency help. Prepare work permits for work in confined spaces, as appropriate. Have a means of exit provided from the inside of the trench, usually no more than 8 meters, 25 feet, away than any worker in the trench. Plan for adverse weather conditions, for example hot or cold environments, storms, etc. Prepare an emergency plan and rescue procedures. Keep first aid boxes at the site. Educate and train workers about all existing and potential hazards and risks and appropriate safety measures. What's the difference between a check valve and flashback arrestor? A check valve can only prevent the reverse gas flow. A flashback arrestor prevents reverse gas flow and arrests the flashback. A check valve cannot arrest a flashback. What is the responsibility of Firewatch? Constantly patrolling areas where hot work is being performed, maintaining vigilance of potential fires. Being familiar with facilities and procedures for sounding an alarm in the event of a fire and having a means of notifying emergency services. What are the major steps for Firewatch duties? Constantly patrolling areas where hot work is being performed, maintaining vigilance of potential fires. Being familiar with facilities and procedures for sounding an alarm in the event of a fire and having a means of notifying emergency services. Having fire extinguishing equipment readily available and being well trained in its use. Maintaining the conditions and requirements stated on the safety permit. Inspecting the entire work area to look for potential release of flammable vapors or liquids before, during, and at the end of each shift. Being prepared to operate fire extinguishers, hydrants, fixed monitors, and hose carts anytime. Never leaving the job site while the work is being done. What are the hazard symbols? Explosive, symbol, exploding bomb. Flammable, symbol, flame. Oxidizing, symbol, flame over circle. Corrosive, symbol, corrosion. Acute toxicity, symbol, skull and crossbones. Hazardous to the environment, symbol, dead tree and fish. Health hazard, hazardous to the ozone layer, symbol, exclamation mark. Serious health hazard, symbol, health hazard. Gas under pressure, symbol, gas cylinder. What are the basic rules of scaffolding? Scaffolding should be assembled under the supervision and direction of a competent person. Provide safe ladder access. Workers should never climb on braces or structural members, frames. Use scaffold-grade lumber when creating platforms. Install guards and toe boards on all scaffolds. Have a competent person train all personnel in safe scaffolding use. Ensure the structure is able to support 4 times the maximum intended load, including its own weight. Basic scaffolding safety don'ts. Leave anything on the scaffold at the end of your shift. Overload the scaffold. Use unstable objects such as barrels, boxes, loose brick or concrete blocks to support scaffolds. Increase your work height or planks. Work on platforms or scaffolds unless they are fully planked. Use a scaffold unless guardrails and all flooring are in place. Stand on ties, guardrails, or extensions. Use the scaffold if it appears damaged in any way, has been tampered with, or if there are components missing such as planking, guardrails, toe boards, debris nets or protective canopies. Walk on scaffold planking covered in ice, snow or mud. Avoid using a scaffold during adverse weather such as heavy rain, sleet, ice, snow or strong winds. Climb on any portion of the scaffold frame not intended for climbing. Never climb with any materials or tools in your hand, they should be hoisted up to the scaffold separately. Jump from, to, or between scaffolding. Lean out or over each outside the guardrails. Rock the scaffold. Throw anything overboard unless a spotter is available. Basic scaffolding safety do's. Inspect the scaffold using a checklist or mobile inspection app before the work shift and ensure it is safe and in proper working order. Provide proper training. Have a toolbox talk before beginning work. Wear appropriate PPE. Always check inspection tags. Know the weight capacity of the scaffold. Have a handhold above the scaffold platform. Level the scaffold after each move. Do not extend adjusting leg screws more than 12 inches. Use your safety belts and lanyards when working on scaffolding at a height of 10 feet or more above ground level. Attach the lanyard to a secure member of the scaffold. Safely use the ladder when climbing the cross braces for access to the scaffold. Keep both feet on the decking. Stay off scaffold during loading or unloading. Ensure planking is overlapping or secured from movement. Follow the manufacturer's instructions when erecting the scaffold, under the direct supervision of a competent person. Be mindful of co-workers working above and below you at all times, as well as others working on the scaffold. Use the debris chutes or lower things by hoist or by hand. Chock the wheels of the rolling scaffold, using the wheel blocks, and also lock the wheels by using your foot to depress the wheel lock, before using the scaffold. Always use netting to catch anything that falls. What are the details in a scaffold tag? Scaffolding safety tags are typically used after an inspection of the scaffold. The most common system of tagging involves using red tags for unsafe or incomplete scaffolds, and green tags for scaffolds that are ready for use. Tagging occurs at any access point, including ladders or ramps. What should not be used to support a scaffold? You should also avoid using a scaffold during adverse weather such as heavy rain, sleet, ice, snow, or strong winds. Climb on any portion of the scaffold frame not intended for climbing. Always use a fixed ladder, internal access stairway, or built-in ladder to access the working platform. What is the minimum required overlap for scaffold platforms that are overlapped to create a long platform? On scaffolds where platforms are overlapped to create a long platform, the overlap shall occur only over supports, and shall not be less than 12 inches, 30 centimeters, unless the platforms are nailed together or otherwise restrained to prevent movement. How much space is permitted between adjacent planks or between the platform and the uprights? The standard requires that the space between the scaffold planks or between scaffold planks and uprights be no more than 1 inch wide. What is the minimum height of a toe board? A standard toe board shall be 4 inches nominal in vertical height from its top edge to the level of the floor, platform, runway, or ramp. It shall be securely fastened in place. Why are toe boards required in addition to guardrails? Toe boards prevent objects from being kicked onto workers below. At what angle should a ladder be positioned? Place the ladder feet so that the horizontal distance between the feet and the top support is 1/4 of the working length of the ladder. The ladder will be leaning at a 75-degree angle from the ground. What is the minimum width required for a walkway? Minimum width of a walkway is 18 inches to 24 inches. What are the main hazards associated with mobile tower scaffolds? Falls from the work platform. Objects falling from the platform. Collapse of the structure. Overturn, toppling, of the structure. Unintended movement of the wheels. Contact with live overheads. What are the safety precautions for mobile tower scaffolds? The guardrail must be fitted to the work platform. The tower must not be overloaded. Wheels should be locked when the tower is in use. The tower must be sited on firm, level ground. People and materials should not remain on the tower when it is moved. Care should be taken to avoid overheads when the tower is moved. Outriggers should be used where necessary to ensure stability. People should not climb up the outside of the tower. Tower must be built by trained workers. When should a scaffold be inspected? A scaffold used for construction should be inspected before it is used for the first time and then every 7 days, until it is removed. It should also be inspected each time it is exposed to conditions likely to cause deterioration, e.g. following adverse weather conditions or following substantial alteration. What is a lifeline in fall protection? Fall protection lifeline systems are your next line of fall protection. Lifeline systems can be used to arrest workers in the event of a fall, active system, or restrain workers from reaching a fall hazard, restraint. What is the capacity of lifeline? Before using a lifeline, check with the manufacturer for the minimum breaking strength and OSHA and ANSI guidelines for capacity. Some lifelines have a minimum breaking strength of 5,000 to 11,000 pounds. How often should a full body harness be inspected? Detailed inspection. A formally recorded inspection should be undertaken at least every 6 months. What is a horizontal lifeline? The horizontal lifeline consists of a cable attached to 2 or more anchor points on a rooftop, crane runway, bridge or outdoor construction site, or any other elevated work area that poses a fall risk to personnel. How do self-retracting lifelines work? A self-retracting lifeline is a type of lanyard that allows a user to move around freely within an area. The lanyard rolls out and retracts based on the user's movement. The retracting lanyard works pretty much the same. Only its function is to stop falls and limit forces imposed on the worker's body during a fall. How do inspecting a self-retracting lifeline? Inspect the SRL impact indicator. Inspect product labeling. Inspect the carabiner connection point. Inspect all fasteners, pop rivets, bolts, or screws are fully flush with housing. Test retraction functionality. Test braking functionality. Inspect full length of lifeline. Inspect snap hook or rebar hook. What is lockout/tag-out system? Lockout, take-out refers to specific practices and procedures to safeguard employees from the unexpected energization or startup of machinery and equipment. What are the steps of lockout, tag-out? Preparation. Shutdown. Isolation. Lockout, take-out. Stored energy check. Isolation verification. What is the purpose of a lockout, take-out checklist? Lockout, take-out checklist. Employees who work with hazardous energy must be trained in energy control procedures, also known as lockout, take-out. Measures must be taken to disable machinery to prevent the release of hazardous energy during maintenance procedures. What is the importance of a toolbox meeting? Toolbox talks are a great way to reinforce safety basics, focus on high-risk scenarios and to inform workers about changes to the job site and working conditions that may have occurred since their last shift. Be sure to cover any accidents or injuries that have occurred and how they could have been prevented. What is the purpose of an emergency evacuation plan? Evacuation purpose. The purpose of this plan is to provide for the safe and orderly evacuation of personnel and visitors in the event of an emergency situation. This plan contains procedures on how to report an emergency, what to do and who will assist you. Building evacuation instruction. Safely stop your work. Leave the building through the nearest door with an exit sign. Report to your designated assembly area. Wait for instructions from emergency responders. Emergency evacuation instructions. Stay calm. Do not rush or panic. Safely stop your work. Gather your personal belongings if it is safe to do so. Take prescription medications, keys, purse, glasses, etc. with you if at all possible, as it may be hours before you are allowed back into the building. If safe, close your office door and window, but do not lock them. Use the nearest safe stairs and proceed to the nearest exit. Do not use the elevator. Proceed to the designated emergency evacuation assembly area. Wait for instructions from emergency responders. Do not re-enter the building or work area until you have been instructed to do so by emergency responders. What is hydro test pressure? Hydro test is the technique in which pipes, pressure vessels, gas cylinders, tanks are tested at required design pressure of the system or pipes or vessel to check the leak and strength. What is hydro test package? A hydrostatic test package includes a markup P&I.D, ISO drawing, test pressure calculations, test and inspection reports, and punch list, test procedures, etc. Why pneumatic test is dangerous? Pneumatic tests are potentially more dangerous than hydrostatic tests because of the higher level of potential energy stored during compressing the gas. Care must be exercised to minimize the chance of brittle failure during testing by initially assuring the system is suitable for pneumatic testing. Purpose of hydro test. Identify the leaks. To check the strength of the welded joint. To check the capacity of the system. Hazards of hydro test. Breaking, failure of line, gasket, flanges, and gauges. Air entrapment inside the pipe. Usage of an engine-operated pump. Inadvertently, suddenly increase of pressure due to underrated or non-calibrated pressure gauges. Substandard support. PSV failure. Safety precautions of hydro test. Hydro test area shall be barricaded and provide warning boards to prevent personnel entry. Calibrated pressure gauges and pressure safety valves only shall be used. Rating of fittings, pressure gauges, vent valves, gaskets shall be suitable for the test pressure. Flanges and plates shall be as per the line class. All the temporary welding shall be performed by qualified welders and approved by client QA/QC. Ensure vent provided at the highest elevation. Gradual filling of lines shall be done keeping vent open. Ensure that the line is vented to remove air pockets before pressurization. Pressure should be raised gradually under control to allow time for pipes to strain and time for personnel to check for leaks. There shall be at least 2 pressure gauges, one at lowest point and another at the highest point in the system. Hydro-testing crews should not stay in the direction of the blind flanges to prevent injury in case of flange rupture. All hoses/piping, gaskets and connectors, clamps shall be of adequate rating to withstand pressure. Whiplash arrestor shall be provided at hose connection. Personnel shall not approach the system under high pressure. Only essential and trained persons shall be allowed at the hydro test work location. Access shall be free from any obstacle. Supervisors shall be present at work location during hydro testing activities are done. Risk assessment shall be done for any hydro test job. What are the safety requirements for doing a hot work? Try to weld only in well-ventilated areas. Work in confined spaces only if they've been atmosphere tested. Follow all other confined space procedures. Do not weld, cut or grind near flammable or combustible materials, liquids, vapors and dusts. Have the appropriate fire extinguisher close by. Use only approved equipment in good condition and follow the manufacturer's instructions. Inspect equipment for loose connections, bare wires or cables before operating. Make sure the machinery is properly grounded. Handle compressed gas cylinders safely, following proper use and storage procedures. Keep aisles and stairways clear of cables and equipment. Keep other people a safe distance from welding and cutting operations. Learn first aid techniques for burns, poison inhalation, shock and eye injuries. Know where the safety showers and eye wash stations are and how to use them. What is a risk assessment? Risk assessment is the process of evaluating risks to workers' safety and health from workplace hazards. What is the meaning of muster point? A muster point, or emergency assembly point, is a designated spot away from the facility for people to gather in an emergency situation. What is the main cause of heat stress? Heat stress occurs when our body is unable to cool itself enough to maintain a healthy temperature. Normally, the body cools itself by sweating, but sometimes sweating isn't enough and the body temperature keeps rising. What are symptoms of heat stress? Cool, moist skin with goosebumps when in the heat. Heavy sweating. Faintness. Dizziness. Fatigue. Weak, rapid pulse. Low blood pressure upon standing. Muscle cramps. Nausea. Headache. What are the precautions to be taken storing compressed cylinders? Minimize the number of cylinders in use and storage with a just-in-time ordering process. Avoid storing cylinders in hallways, near elevators, heavily traveled areas, or near exits. Cylinders must not obstruct exit routes, electrical panels, or emergency equipment. Cylinders must not be stored where moving objects may strike or fall on them. All cylinders in service or storage must be secured to prevent falling or rolling. Store in an upright position and secure with a bracket, chain, or low stretch strap around the upper third of the cylinder, above the center of gravity, or with equivalent method. Store and use cylinders in well-ventilated locations that do not exceed 125 degrees Fahrenheit or 52 degrees Celsius. Storage areas must be prominently posted with the hazard class or the name of the gases stored. For example, hydrogen flammable gas, no smoking, no open flames. Empty cylinders should be segregated from full cylinders and shall be marked or tagged empty. Cylinders should not be placed where they may become part of an electrical circuit. What is first aid and CPR? The aims of first aid are to preserve life, prevent harm, and promote recovery. In first aid, ABC stands for airway, breathing, and circulation. The recovery position helps minimize further injury. CPR stands for cardiopulmonary resuscitation. It helps maintain the flow of oxygenated blood. What is fire? Fire is the rapid oxidation of a material in the exothermic chemical process of combustion.
Please give comment and suggestions.
Thank you.
Subscribe our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon for more updates. Thank for visit our channel. See you next class.
Thank you.